Okay, quick introduction what we're doing here. I actually do have a Blue Eddy that was loaned to me recently, well, a couple years ago I guess now, but I don't typically use it. But my thought is, could I use other things that I have and do basically the same thing as having a solar generator? So this video is part of a collection of videos that I'm going to make. In this case, we're using Harbor Freight tool batteries and an inverter and a couple other parts to do the same thing that a solar generator would do. In the other video, we're going to use an electric bike battery and an inverter to do the same kind of thing. My reasoning is a lot of people have electric tools already, so if the power goes off, would it be practical to grab some of your cordless tool batteries and use them to run some important load that you had, or at least charge your phones? The other part of it is the electric bike. If it's if you're only out of power for a couple days, that battery could get a couple things done, or at least run your laptop and your phone or something like that. So that's the idea. What we're looking at now is kind of a block diagram of what it takes to make this work. I'm not going into too many specifics on this video because everybody's tool batteries are different voltages, but it'll give you a starting point at least. So many people are buying solar generators now that the cost is coming down, and the ones I've looked at recently are much better in a lot of respects. So it may not be worth your trouble, but it's something to at least consider. All right, enjoy the video. Just a quick update of where we're at. We're connected to the battery. I could charge phones off of here. That one says 13.7 in case it doesn't show up. So that's that's kind of what you would expect. So it's coming from 20 volts through this down converter, and then it's coming into this power strip. All the blacks are on one side and the positive is on the other side. In this case, they did red and black for the input and black and white for the output. So I had checked this once before, and black is black, so that should make sense, but it's worth checking sometimes. If you run into a black and white in some commercial, I've seen it on some of the trucks. I've seen DC wired what would seem backwards, basically. They're doing it more like AC power. So white would be common, black would be hot. So it's worth checking just to be sure. If you measured the voltage in your vehicle at the cigarette lighter, it probably wouldn't be 12 if the engine was running, because your battery's got to be more than 12. So the alternator puts out more power so that it can charge the battery. It's got to be a high enough voltage to actually charge the battery, so it's more like 13 or 14. So this is pretty close to what the vehicle would be giving you if you were plugged into the cigarette lighter of a vehicle when it's running. So that's going to be better for the inverter. If you got the inverter down at 11 volts, that's not very good, but it can handle 13 or 14 just fine. So this is totally good. So we got the power coming into the power strip. I use these connectors, and we got it hooked up to a cigarette lighter. This is a dual one, and then we're going to that. So that part's good to go. I can just push on the front of the battery. I still got 4 out of 4, so it basically says it's full. I've been using these batteries for a while, so I don't know if it's fully charged, but I should say going into this, I've got 6 of these and 2 of the smaller ones. This is 5 amp hours at 20 volts, and the 2 small ones are 2.5 amp hours. So my thought is, I know it's going to be sunny tomorrow, so I can charge these tomorrow, and I'm not really using them right now. If this doesn't end up going long enough, I still have 4 bicycle batteries that I can do the same kind of a setup. I just use the other step down. So I can go from 53 volts out to 12.5 volts. Alright, so let's cook some beans here. This is called the kilowatt. Okay. This is indispensable for basically if you're going to live off grid or do like long-term camping or van life. Get one of these, and then you can kind of figure out how much power each device uses. Okay, so like, I don't know if this is going to show up or not. I'll try to do this one-handed and look at the camera at the same time. Okay, that shows voltage, 11.4 and a half. I'm sorry, 114, 110, 115, so that's about right. You can see how many amps you're pulling. Right now is 0 because we're not plugged in. You can see how many watts you're pulling. Again, 0. You can see the hertz. It should be 60. Yeah, that's pretty good. This is not a pure sine wave inverter, just for what it's worth. This last one will show us how many kilowatt hours we used. I tested this a while ago, and I used, in 8 hours cooking beans, I used 0.75 kilowatt hours off of the main system. So that kind of gives us a starting point. Okay, so what we can do, we'll go to watts, and we'll plug in the beans. I probably don't have quite enough cord. We'll make this work. Science, right? Doesn't do any good if I just do the magic and say it worked, but you get the idea. Okay, the beans are plugged in. Yeah, 87.6 watts. Not in focus. There we go. 87.5, 87.6. So I had written down earlier 90, so that's about right. Okay. I don't think this uses much power. I'm going to leave it in there and see. Well, every time when I run my battery dead, this will get this doesn't save its settings. It'll get reset every time. So I'm going to take it off because it wouldn't give us a meaningful number. I've tested it earlier. So I think I started saying this and then I didn't finish the thought. I'm just using this wood here because I got bare connectors here and I'm on a metal surface, so I don't want to have anything arc. So that'll hopefully help. And then we got the beans going. Now that we got that going, I have already preheated the water. I used the propane stove and boiled some water to go in here, so that's, if you see any steam, that's because of that. It's at least warm now. And the time now is about 9:50, so 10 minutes before 10. Okay, so my plan is just every so often, I'm not going to do a play-by-play on the video, but I'll just come over and check it once in a while, make sure I got power in the battery. I'm down to 3 out of 4 already. Okay. I haven't done any math how long this will last, but I do know I've got 6 of these. So I'm going to run through all of them, and hopefully, if nothing else, if I run 2 or 3 hours on here and then switch over to the main system, that's better than nothing. Okay. I could figure, it's like, how many amp hours do you got? 5 times 6, that's 30 amp hours. Okay. And then we could figure out the watt hours. But then the reason I'm not going to waste a lot of time with that, I don't know the exact efficiency of this. It's using 80 watts, but it could be losing, for instance, it does generate some heat, so you're losing some power. So I might be delivering 80 watts, but I might be using 90 watts from the battery. Okay. So, like, for instance, you can kind of ballpark it, but I'm not convinced that doing the math is really useful at this point. You just say, okay, did 4 batteries work or do I need 5? Okay, I can check the amps coming off the battery. That's pulling 5 amps. If this is a 5 amp hour battery, I should be able to run this for an hour. Okay, so we'll check it, I'll kind of keep an eye on it. When it quits working, I'll know. So yeah, it's pulling 5 amps. Okay, that's quite a bit. But that makes sense. I mean, if it's equal numbers, 5 amps for an hour. Okay, that might be enough. If I run all the batteries, I can probably cook a thing of beans on here. Okay. Also, 5 amps times 20 volts is 100 watts. And that's kind of what we're getting on the output here. But going from DC down converting to lower DC and then kicking it up to AC. We're going back and forth, so we're not really even units all the way across. But that's at least a starting point. Okay. The last thing I wanted to mention, and this might end up as part of that, I've been playing with these since I got back from the bike trip, because it's basically because I've got them all, right? Houston Firefox, a big supporter of the channel, loaned me his Blue Eddy quite a while ago, and I hardly ever use it. This would be a good opportunity to use it, but my thought, I was kind of thinking about this a couple days ago, if a person was thinking they needed a Blue Eddy but hadn't bought one yet, I was going to make this video and kind of present an option that most people probably wouldn't have thought of. Cooling fan. Okay, that's going to be annoying. Actually, let's just do this. We'll come back and turn that on. Okay, so what I was thinking, instead of a person buying the Blue Eddy, just for that once in a while when the power goes out, right? Now, if you're going van life and you're actually building something, like you're going to go out long term, a Blue Eddy makes a lot of sense. Or if you're actually going to live off grid here. But to me, the Blue Eddy was a very expensive solution to a problem that I could solve easier using individual parts, and then I could piece it together exactly how I wanted. Okay. But the Blue Eddy is pretty neat, or solar generator, we'll just say that. But what I got to thinking about, a lot of people have cordless tools. So I thought, if I present it this way, if you've already got a cordless tool, and it could be, you know, any brand, DeWalt or whatever, they all have a similar kind of a way to hook things up. Okay. Most of the cordless tools are not 12 volts anymore. They're 20 volts or 24 or 48 or 60. Okay. So that doesn't make it easy to just go do it this way. But if you were looking at it, this guy is only, I'm going to say 20 bucks. It might not even be $20. So find one that's appropriate to the battery you have. Okay. This inverter, I just bought this at the end of the bike trip. It was $36 at Harbor Freight. Okay. So before you go buy a bunch of stuff, look around. What do you already have? If you've already got a DeWalt power tool, for example, you might have more than one battery. And with the battery or with the tool, you've got a charger. Okay. So if this was just once in a while the power goes off, or you think, okay, I'm going to do it just a little bit once in a while. You buy a little inverter and a size, you know, a down converter that's appropriate to your battery, and a couple connectors, and you could build essentially a Blue Eddy. Instead of buying a several $100 solar generator, especially if you're not going to use it very often, this might be more useful for you. The other option is if you had an electric bicycle, you could do the same thing. You just get a different one of these, the down converter, you hook it up to the bike battery. You've already got a charger for the bike battery. When I did the solar bike trip, I went 4,000 miles on a solar-powered electric bike. And I was doing basically this plus one more little box that hooked up to the solar panels. And so I was charging the bike as I was riding. I hardly ever plugged in. I always just solar charged. And that worked fantastically. So if you were going to get the Blue Eddy and the solar panel, you would get the solar panel anyway. So instead of getting the Blue Eddy, you could get something like this and get a solar panel and a charge controller that worked for your battery, and you're there. Plus, if you've got cordless tools or the electric bike, now you've got something you could use anytime instead of just waiting for the power to go out. Alright, I took the time to grab some alligator clips, and that's kind of loosely attached up there, not really good, but 18.9 now. So Now I can at least look over here and see it without having to pull out the meter every time. That's a start. So 18.9 is 3 out of 4 already, so this might not make beans. We'll see. But that's how we start. You got to start testing somewhere. This one ran 40 minutes. I'm down to 1 bar on the little indicator on the battery and 16.6. I don't want to kill these right now, so I don't want to push it to the point of failure. You know, because they cost money, right? That just jumped up to 17. This must be throttling. Nice and warm, though. Oh, no, it just actually went offline. Okay, so we were right there. Battery still got power. One of these quit. Oh, it's also possible that the down converter shut off. I'm going to write that down. 17 volts, it went offline. 16.9, 16.8, something like that. That was something I hadn't thought of, but it makes sense. This would possibly be set up not to run your main battery dead. So that's kind of handy. Okay, so 40 minutes is still pretty good. Yeah, shows 1 out of 4. Okay, we'll put that aside. It's about 45 degrees in here, and these batteries are in the back where it's even colder, so that also is a factor. If batteries are cold, they don't perform as well. So none of this is, well, this is more real-world testing, not, you know, Chinese best case testing. Shouldn't pick on the Chinese. But this is battery number 3, and it happens to be the 3rd one in the test. It starts off at full, and it's only showing 19 volts. These haven't been on the charger for a couple of weeks at least. Lithium does tend to hold its power pretty long, but then again, this went straight into being under load too. And once the new battery's plugged in, this turned on. We're getting our power out here. Our inverter's turned on, so we're getting there. Also, because I'm not running the beans on the main system outside the main inverter and the solar system, that's coming up now. So if nothing else, I'll still finish it on the other system. Okay, so that one started at 19 volts and we're number 3. I'm kind of keeping track of this. It's science if you write it down, I think. 16.5 and 1 bar. Come over and warm my hands up. It's cold today. I think we'll change it now. These are doing about half as much as I would have expected. I've already ran through half. I've got 3 batteries left and I've used 3. If I could get 45 minutes out of one, I'd be happy. That was about half an hour on the last one, so we're not quite there yet. But I should say that I haven't fully charged these lately. I mean, I charged them when I used them, but I had them all sitting there. Also, these are not brand new batteries. I rode about 1,500 miles on these on the electric bike, so they have some use to them. Okay, 19.3. These should be closer to 21, so they aren't fully charged. I don't think I've videotaped every battery change. I've got 1 battery left of the big ones. It's not really worth using the little one. It's half size. Some of these I'm getting 30 minutes, 35 minutes out of, so that's not terrible, but if I'm pulling 5 amps, a 5 amp hour battery should last an hour. So I'm a little underwhelmed there, but like I said, these have a few miles on them. So that's, you know. Also, it seems more like this is shutting off. The battery still is working, but once they get down, you know, to 16.5 volts, they don't have very much left in them anyway. It should hold longer, kind of thing. That one was 20 volts, 20.1, something like that. Then it dropped down to 19.5. Okay, so that's the last battery. It is 12:38 now. So we've been running, what, about 3 hours? They're not beans yet. I mean, they're beans, but they aren't cooked. It is kind of boiling though. I mean, from the crock pot's point of view, it's probably about as good as it would be anyway. I actually got too much water in there. I usually don't put that much in, so that slows it down a little bit. Starting to get soft. It's not going to turn into a cooking program, I promise. So, what's our next plan? Well, it turns out it's not really getting any brighter outside, but because I haven't been using the batteries outside on the main solar array, it is getting a charge out there. So I think what I'll do, I'll run this battery until it drops off. Have another half an hour or so, and then I'll move this back to plugged into the regular system, which has, you know, a lot more solar panels feeding into it. And hopefully we got enough to finish the beans from there. If not, the next possible, I guess the simplest thing would be just to put them on the stove and finish them that way. So, yeah. It's not rocket science. It was just kind of a curiosity at this point, would it work at all? So far it is. It's just burning batteries faster than I thought it would. Okay. One of the things I've found cooking the beans, it's not very much watts, but it's such a long continuous load. It is a serious drag. If I would have started this experiment with the rice cooker pulls, I wrote it down, 200 watts instead of 90, so just over twice as much, but it'll be done in 25 minutes. Okay, I timed it, so I could probably cook a pot of rice. I mean, this is a little serving of rice. It's not very much, but you know, if I use one or two of these batteries to cook the rice, okay, that would be fine. Also, now that I've said that, I'll probably I think I'll start the rice now, use the house power for that, and then that'll give the time for the batteries to recover. Yeah, it's like a shell game here, all of the little tricks I do to get through the day. Not any of the things I have really work the way that they're supposed to, but I have enough of them that I kind of piece things together. Yeah, my world. It's kind of a mess. All right, start the rice and stand by. Oh yeah, there's the rice cooker over there. All right, the last battery is just about dead, and the rice is finished on the main system. So we can unplug that, and I'll just move this plug over to off of the main system. I had 13.0 volts when I started cooking rice. It dropped down to 12.0 just running the rice cooker, and there's basically nothing but lights on. So that's how bad it is today. Usually that wouldn't happen, but this uses half as much power. Yeah, I timed that out right. That just went offline. Okay, so about 16 and a half, 17 volts, something like that. Okay, so thought I'd check. Yeah, all of this stuff is cold. It's not getting warm at all from the load, so that's good. So 6 dead batteries, beans that are half cooked, perfect. All right, let's plug this guy in. Oh, hot. Figure if it cooked the rice, this uses half as much power as the rice, but it basically pulled the battery down in the process. So, all right, so it's 5 o'clock. It's basically getting dark outside. Dark and windy and cold. Time to lock up and shut down and whatever. So it's supper time. I just laughed when I did that because I had already cooked the rice. That was the last remaining power this afternoon. I cooked the rice, And I ended up finishing cooking the beans on the propane stove here. And they were basically done, so then I dumped the chili in and stirred it up and kept the burner going for a while. And then it was like 3 o'clock, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to let it sit there and simmer for 2 hours. So I shut everything down, and I'm like, okay, let's add the rice, and then I'll reheat it. And I pulled it out, and it came out in one piece. It's not frozen solid, but you know, I cooked it 5 hours ago, I guess. So the rice became a rice cake, I guess you could call it. Maybe that is the thing. Anyway, I just figured that was a funny shot for the end. That'll be our thumbnail probably. Make sure it's in focus. Yep, that makes a good thumbnail. Perfect. All right. Now, the downside is the forecast for tomorrow looks like it's going to be about as bad as it is today. Those batteries are down to 12.6. Basically, when you drop below 12.8, you don't have much left. It drops pretty fast. The outside is 12.1, so at least I can run lights if I want to, but I did shut the inverter off. I'm running, at the moment, all of this is running off of the lithium batteries. So, yeah. Welcome to my world. Also, yeah, these lights are also coming off the lithium. I got DC lighting set up in here to run off of the lithium battery, so I got to make sure not to run that too dead. If things get really bad, I've got my large assortment of, yep, those are actually really bright. I actually got 5 of those. They run for about an hour or two, and then they're dead. They charge off USB. So when that happens, you just switch to something else. Oh yeah, this is kind of fun. I just did this about an hour ago. Last winter, and I guess the winter before, I had a blue blanket like that. That's one of the Harbor Freight moving blankets. I had that draped over the bed, so there's PVC pipe framework already and cardboard on the ends. And I made the legs longer so they come up to there. And I took that off when I got home, actually. I had left it up because it was cold when I left. So when it's cold, you drop the tent down, and then just your body heat is kind of held in. The one winter when I was in the bus, I had taken bubble wrap insulation. That also worked really well. But I was thinking about it. I've got, well, like allergies and all the dust, and, you know, I was thinking about those moving blankets, and they're full of all kinds of probably toxic fibers from China. And I keep hitting on China today, but I'm like, you know, I'm breathing that stuff. It's probably not very good for me. So this is an actual tent. I mean, military tent, so I'm not saying they take any better care of their people than anybody else, but it was relatively clean. So I took it outside tonight in the wind and shook all the mouse poop out of it and everything, and there looked like a part of a nest in there. So cleaned that out a little bit and shook it off and set it up in here. So what I did, I've got, probably can't see it, parachute cord tied off to the ceiling, holding up another piece of PVC pipe that runs down the length here. And so each end is held up with parachute cord to the ceiling. And then on the inside, it drops down, but if I can find it, there's a light in here somewhere. There we go. So I've got a light up in the top, and a phone charger and a place to put the phone. Got a little bit of an air gap in that corner. I'll probably tuck that in when it gets really cold. Or I could put that cardboard back up because it fell down. With the cardboard snapped up, it worked pretty good. I just used a stapler. I can find the switch. There we go. So, yeah. We're hunkered down and ready for winter. Also, I am totally done with winter. I could go back to warm tomorrow and be completely fine. I spent a couple of years in the tropics, and this is not my thing. Oh, also I'm wearing a military sweater, and a hoodie, and my jacket still. And I just came in from outside, and I'm like, I don't think I'm taking my jacket off. Yeah, it's 47 degrees Fahrenheit in here. It's going to drop down to just about freezing overnight again. So I did dust off, well, shook the dirt out of the heater, so it's not hooked up yet, but it's ready. That'll hook up. I got a Y adapter so I can hook up to that tank and run the heater and the stove off the same tank. That tank, I'll bet I can make it through the winter on that tank still, and I've got another full one, so when it gets there, I'm ready for, I can turn it on, but I hate to waste that stuff because then you have to go get more. If I don't have to use it, then, you know, it's like the power. Burning a little bit of propane to cook the beans, okay, fine, you know. But if I didn't cook the beans on propane, if I cook them off of solar, that's renewable. Next time the sun shines, batteries charge, we're right back up there again. So I try really hard to do that. It's just nice when it automatically refills most days. All right, hunker in for the night. Oh, that's a good look right there. I tell you what, got my I got my whole collection going here. Got my military color but not military jacket, military sweater, watch cap, military style. But the hoodie itself is from when I worked at the post office. That covers just about everything. Could almost be a Coast Guard with that. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching the video, and stay tuned for more. And pray for sun. That's it. Bye for now.